Assalamu alaikum, and thank you so much for tuning into the Islam Dunk Show. I'm your host, Tariq Ibrahim. And typically I normally start off the show by mentioning that this is going to be an amazing show, and this is going to be the best show in the world, and you've never heard a better show in your entire life. And all that is true, to keep that in mind. All that is true. But today I want to start off a little bit different and actually bring about that today's show is actually going to be really, really different. And it's going to actually, perhaps some people might be annoyed by it or offended by it, or they might even wonder what's the point of even discussing this silly topic. And these are things that might be going through your mind as I continue to discuss with you guys today's concepts. But I've always been a proponent of the idea that it's extremely important for anybody to always keep an open mind, to always keep your mind open, to always be looking, to always be reflecting, and to constantly be thinking very deep. The superficial world that we see, this concrete jungle that we live in, we need to really train ourselves to dig a little bit deeper, to see something, but to then ask why, to then look a little more into it, and not just accept things for the mere fact of accepting things or understand things for the reason of understanding things, but really to be just a little bit more deeper, right? And I think this would serve humanity significantly if we all left the surface of superficiality and just thought a little bit longer than doing anything else. So with that being said, I'm actually going to do something a little bit, like I said, a little bit different, a little unorthodox. And I'm sure many of you are aware of the series by J.R.R. Tolkien, right? And for you that don't know him or are unaware of who that guy is, or my pronunciation of his last name was so brutal that you're unable to figure out who I'm talking about, the author of The Lord of the Rings. Okay? This is a huge author. His book sold, astronomical amounts. Movies made astronomical amounts of money. Really successful individual, right? And what I noticed, and I've noticed this in other things as well. I won't say this is the only time I've noticed this, but there are things when you watch a movie or you read a book, and you're like, yeah, you know what? That is so talking about Islam. I don't know if anybody's noticed that. You're just sitting there and you're just like, dude, this is exactly what Islam is all about. This is it right here. This is what it's talking about. Or, yo, I can't believe this just happened. This is so just like this scenario here. So what we're going to do today is I'm actually going to sort of reflect in a very unique way on something like this today. And the work by this legendary author is actually filled with some of the best poetry found in the 20th century, right? And much of its wisdom is found in many parts of the world and reflects the deep truths that are found within the Abrahamic faith. And there obviously becomes obvious that it's part of the Islamic tradition. And what I'm going to do is actually focus on this, okay? I'm actually going to focus on the Lord of the Rings, actually reflect on wisdoms that have a very specific relevance to us as Muslims and non-Muslims, right? I think everybody will benefit from this, to be honest. And I said, this is extremely unorthodox. I don't think anybody has ever, well, to my knowledge anyway, has done something like this before. But I want you to keep in mind that we're not looking to the Lord of the Rings as some sort of spiritual guidance, right? But we're simply reflecting on that, looking at that, reflecting on it, and seeing, something a little bit better, right? We're able to see that and be able to ponder and reflect and see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And for those that know me, right? For those that have the complete displeasure of knowing me, know that one of my constant things is to say that wherever you are, with anything that you do, with whatever you see, it should clearly always be a sign for you to reflect on the greatness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I always try and mention that, and whether we're at a campsite, whether we're just walking around, whatever the scenario is, I always try and have that this is it. And of course in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions this in countless ayats, that this is for those that reflect, those are for these that ponder, right? So we're going to reflect and ponder today, right? From the creation, we should be able to see the Creator, okay? From the creation, we should be able to know the Creator. Now, At-Tirmidhi actually gives us a little bit of advice here, and he says that the statement of wisdom is the lost property of the believer. So wherever he finds it, then he has a right to it. So based on that, this is where we're going to use as our jumping point or our diving board to go in. And what we're going to go now is mention one of the most commonly used verses of poetry, or one of the most familiar lines in the saga of the Lord of the Rings. And the line is, "All that is gold does not glitter. Not all those who wander are lost." And these are the first two lines of poems written by Bilbo Baggins. And they are in reference to Danadian, the descendants of the nobles and the royals of Gondor. And these are the ones, right, just to give the background information for those that may be unfamiliar with the story here. These are the ones who sailed across the sea when their ancestral home, the island of Numenor, was destroyed by the One due to their breakings of his commandments to never try and reach the undying lands. Okay? And again, the evil Sauron is able to convince some men to cross the sea and invade the undying lands so that they might be immortal. And a group known as the Faithful refused to break the commandment and left Numenor to come to Middle-earth, as the invaders were destroyed by the One himself. And after founding the kingdom of Gondor and Arnor and the gradual descendants of the kingdom into decay and chaos, the descendants of the Faithful then became wanderers, and their role was to secretly and discreetly allow their line to survive while fighting unknown to protect Middle-earth. And Aragorn was their leader before the War of the Rings. And these lines mirror, really, a number of Islamic lessons and ideas. All right? And as you hear this, I'm expecting people to be like, man, this is in that book. This is actually in that book. So again, like I said, we're not using it to base our religion on. But like I said, everything should have a reflection point. And I think there's a very unique one here. Now, some thoughts that I want to share. Now, like I said, extremely unorthodox and unusual to do, but I think it's all right. I think it's all right. I think we're going to have a good time here today. So the first one that immediately comes to my mind, and the one we're going to focus on, is that there are many human beings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or God, has placed on the earth who are unknown, hidden, and go about doing the work of God without any recognition or fame. And they come from a spiritual and educational and sometimes even familiar line connecting them to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to the final messenger of God. And as the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, when the believers enter paradise, there shall already be a number of people inside paradise. And the believers will ask, how did you get here? And the people shall respond, we used to worship Allah secretly, so He placed us in paradise secretly. And for those seeking sincerity, this is truly a wonderful goal. And those who go out of their way to worship Allah and do good deeds and good things secretly, Allah will reward them with some among His secrets in this world and reward them secretly in the next by His permission. Now, these people, the friends of God, or the friends of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, are the gold of humanity. Right? The gold of humanity. Its most precious treasure. And the one reason that we are bestowed with divine grace on the earth, but just like the fictional Dunedain, they do not glitter, they do not shine, they do not flash. They don't have a Twitter page with 1 billion followers, or a Facebook page with tons of fans, or a YouTube channel with an undeniable amount of followers. They don't have any of this. Zero. They put their head down and work to worship Allah and serve others. And we can pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows us to meet them and to learn from them. But even more critically, that by His unfailing mercy, He allows us to be like them. Now, I want to put a pretty big, disclaimer there, that this doesn't mean, right? That's for the people that are going literal and they're not going deep and they're not listening to what I'm saying and they're just picking things out. That this does not mean that utilizing social media and using the mass, right, waves of communication is a negative thing. Right? Nobody's making that implication. However, what I want to say is that, as the statement says, simply that not everything that is gold necessary has to glitter. And that is just because someone is not famous or well known or all over the internet does not mean that they are not of amazing quality or close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, close to God, and useful to His servants. Ibn Ata'illah rahmatullah writes, bury yourself in the earth of being hidden. For what grows without being buried does not come to fruition. So just a little thought, that the idea that before one is able to engage people and provide fruit, one must first spend some time buried in the earth the way a seed is buried, and is central to our understanding of spiritual growth and purification of the soul, right? And we find that this word, burying of oneself in the cave of Hira with our Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that the walk across the desert for Musa, the seemingly secret lessons of Khidr, which we only found centuries later in the revelation to the Prophet, as well as the sabbatical of Imam al-Ghazali, when he left his teachings and the Imam responsibilities to go and purify himself for years before returning to Hujjat al-Islam, culminating in some of the most critical legal and spiritual teachings of the Muslim community. This time for yourself to grow, to bury yourself, if you will, is extremely important, right? And one may call such people wanderers, right? Going back now, that these people are wanderers. But such people are not lost. Some may not recognize the gold that such people are and consider them to be nothing. But Allah, or God, has already put them on a path towards Him. And though they may seem like they are wandering, they are in fact racing towards the finish line, racing towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And an amazing thing that I want to share with you, that at one point, Shaykh Muhammad al-Sharrawi, the Azhari scholar, right, and teachers of tafsir, was expected to give his nightly tafsir in the mosque, which was also to be broadcasted. And when the organizers could not find him, they searched and finally found him in the bathroom, dressed in the robes normally worn by religious scholars, cleaning the bathroom of a mosque. And not to belittle the scenario, but I want people to, for the Muslims here in North America, sometimes the washrooms in the masjid is a frightening experience. And take that, multiply it by third world's reality, and I think you can have a more appreciated view on this. And when they find this beautiful Imam there, in his robe and his scholarly dress, cleaning the washroom of the mosque, when they ask him, what was he doing? And his response, paraphrased of course, I had a moment in which I thought too much of myself as I was preparing to teach tafsir to so many. So I came here to remind myself who I am. Right? To remind yourself of who I am. And this is really, really the essence here. This is really what it's all about. That flashiness is not faith, nor is it the path to faith. As one of the companions said, if someone has attained maghfirah, kindness of God, he should keep quiet about it. So of course this would apply to the thousands and thousands of darajat, of levels underneath this maghfirah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, underneath this blessing that has been given. With that in mind, I think it's extremely important and something to remember that we should strive to be of those who can do little things for God's sake secretly. And Allah will make known what benefits others, and we do not need to be our own spokespeople. Right? You go and you do that good deed, and you don't worry about it. You do it, you're happy about it, and you made the proper intention. Inshallah, Allah accepts from it, and that is all the satisfaction you need. These days we get caught in this hustle and bustle, I find, that we need to shine, that we need to be in the spotlight, that we need to be those that are the in crowd, if you will. But this is not what it was about. This was never the case, And it should not be the case. And sometimes, I'm going to share this personal incident here, that sometimes I may feel that Allah is making me wander in my life as I try to reach Him. Right? This is what some of us go through. Career concerns, trials, that we are lost. But our religion teaches us that such an occurrence are exactly, this is undoubtedly the path that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is using to purify us, so that when we present ourselves to Him, He will do nothing except enter us into paradise. And the amazing thing is, during this quote-unquote journey, or this travel, and every person really has gone through this journey, or is about to go through this journey, or will go through this journey. When you're in their journey, you have no idea where you are. You don't know that it's a journey. This is hardship. This is calamity for some people. And you don't know. But if the advice could be given that good things are coming, if that true faith or that true trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is there, that you truly believe that He will not leave you astray, He will not leave you to suffer, and that all of this is good, remember that. Remember that. Remember this episode. That our reaction to this wandering road is what will determine whether we indeed make ourselves lost or reach Allah at the end. Now, there are some spiritual books out there who have no websites, but their connections with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is beyond fiber optic. That it's just so instant, so quick, so amazing. And there are many pretty book covers and websites that are not necessarily indicative of scholarship. And as a community, I think it's extremely important that we need to realize that all the gold of our communities does not glitter. And benefit can be found in unlikely places, whether a small house that serves as a seed for hifz, right, Quran memorization, or a school that turns into its own community, or a PhD of Sharia with a white beard who serves in a quiet corner of a major city. What happened to be involved in the curriculum designed, right, of Al-Azhar. And as much as we strive to be God conscious, as much as we struggle for this path and in this religion of ours, right, as much as we try and get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we're trying to get God-centered, right? Not nafs-centered or self-centered. And we should not allow shaitan, we should not allow the devil to fool us such that we leave any responsibilities that may be thrown on our way. That if we know something reliably that someone else does not, and you are asked about it, sincerity does not entail leaving them to themselves. That is laziness. Sincerity, true sincerity in that scenario, entails helping them find the answer and even directing them towards one who is more qualified. So if you think you know, the best thing for you to do is try and help them find the answer and try and help point them in that direction. To completely ignore, and this is what many of us unfortunately have become, to ignore responsibilities under this quote-unquote label of sincerity is also something that Ibn Ata'illah warns us about. And it is easy to turn the quest for sincerity into its own arrogance, and assuring oneself that the reason one ignores the needs of the people is that one is sincere. And with this attitude, we lose both spirituality and practicality. And we have fooled ourselves and have not helped anybody. And to make it a home run, right, to make it come back to home, This is why Imam al-Nawawi provided us a simple formula to ward off shaitan's whispers. And instead of having to reaffirm our intentions at every instance and every blank time, right? That's all we need to do. Check our intentions at the beginning, the middle, and the end of an act. And if we reaffirm at these 3 checkpoints that what we are doing is for His sake and His sake only, and only for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then God willing, inshallah, that our actions will be accepted. So, as unorthodox it may have been, as strange it may have seemed, today's episode was based on our good friend and our longtime companion, Bilbo Baggins, and that all that is gold does not glitter, and not all those who wander are lost. Subhanakallah bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, wa nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk, wal asri innal insana lafi khusr, illa alladhina amanu wa amilu salihat, wa tawasaw bil haqq, wa tawasaw bis sabr. And we will see you again next week, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.